Iran's new security chief is warning ships in the Strait of Hormuz that they could be fined or even confiscated for violating Tehran's transit rules. Retired four-star General Jack Keane joins the show now. And General, how seriously should we take that threat? I mean, seizing a ship is a lot different to just firing on one, right?
Well, they have seized ships in the past, and they certainly attempt to do that. But here's some of the challenges that they really have, and it's why we're being so successful in getting ships through there. You know, the trend last week was 200. The week before was 150. The week before that was less than 100. But that pales by comparison to 130 ships a day is what was happening before the war started. But you can see the trend line is in the right direction, and that's what's really aggravating the Iranians. But the difference now, Ashley, is they don't have the capability they had weeks ago.
Yeah.
And by that I mean the Admiral Cooper and his team looking at this, they haven't seen a fast boat in weeks, not a single one. And the sensors that they use to try to figure out where the ships are, we took most of those out. In other words, these are the radar systems. So that's why we have been able to move these ships closer to the coast of Oman in the southern part of the Straits, and they rarely ever get interfered with. And that is why the numbers are continuing to go in the right direction. I'm not suggesting the Iranians won't try, they will, but they're not going to be decisive. They're not going to shut down what Admiral Cooper and his team from the 82nd is doing in getting those ships through there. That will continue, if not, indeed, I think it will continue to increase. Now, if they take serious attempts at U.S. or allied oil and gas infrastructure or bases like that, expect President Trump to come down very, very hard on them.
Let's talk about this side of the conflict. Treasury Secretary Bessent says an economic D-Day coming for Iran. You know, we've heard this before, but in your opinion, can extreme economic pressure lead to a deal?
I don't think the Iranians have any intention in making a consequential deal where they would have to make major concessions. I think that's where they have been from the beginning. And they use their own negotiators, pretending to be moderates, to seduce us into the fact that a deal is imminent. We are serious this time. They have never wanted to make a consequential deal. And I think that's where they are. They believe in their minds, and we have to think about where are they in their heads. They think they can outlast us during this economic phase because they don't care about the suffering of their own people, and they're willing to make sacrifices themselves because the only thing they want to do is survive. And that's a very narrow window. If they can survive, they think they can recover and rebuild. But let's see what Secretary Bessent has in mind here. He is going further than anybody in history has gone to isolate a country financially and economically. And he will need cooperation of allies and partners to do this. Example, this month, in the month of August, Pakistan and Turkey increased their trade agreements with Iran. The UAE shut down all of their deals that they're making with Iran, economic and financial. Certainly we'll have to get tough with China and Russia, something we haven't done over Iran in the past. And we have to enforce these sanctions as well. The tough thing is you get a country to agree. We've seen this in the past. They agree with the sanctions, but then a few weeks later they're easing off and they're not abiding by them. And you need a task force watching this by week and by hour to make certain that they're living up to the very agreement that they've made. We have seen Russia and Iran for years, Ashley, work around sanctions. This time, I think it promises to be different, and the reason is Secretary Bessent and his team and what they have learned in watching this take place before, and what Secretary Pompeo did in the first administration, which was very effective as well. More complicated now for some of the reasons I just suggested.
Sure.
But I think if anybody can pull this off, it's Secretary Bessent.
Very good. Quickly, you know, the Strait of Hormuz, the president said yesterday, it's now American territory. And of course, he's going to say that. But do you think slowly but surely, day by day, we are getting the control of that strait back?
Yeah, and the numbers are demonstrating that. It's been a
As you
gradual
said.
improvement.
Yes.
Yeah, and the second thing we have to recognize, and that certainly is going to help pressure Iran for sure, because that really is the card they're playing here. That is a strategic asset
Yeah.
that they don't want to give up. And that is the only leverage that they have whatsoever. The other thing that's going to help Secretary Bessent is what the naval blockade is doing, shutting down all the transit in and out of Iranian ports, which
Right.
takes away that entire revenue source, which is quite significant. Those three things, what we're doing in the Straits to increase the traffic, shutting down Iranian traffic with the blockade, and what Secretary Bessent's going to do, as comprehensive as what he has in mind to do here, that'll be the most pressure Iran has ever
We're
been
heading in the
under
right
economically.
direction.
But
Well,
that doesn't
we'll see
mean
how
they're
it
going to give
plays
in.
out, but
You know, we'll
No,
just have
of
to wait and
course.
see.
as you say, it's about their survival. Well, General Keane, as always, thank you so much as we continue to follow this ongoing saga. We appreciate it.